Hey, I'm Todd Bentley and Christa Bentley and our son Eli. We're Sweeter Days Farm here in Ashland City, Tennessee, and we're growing right at about 1.5 acres of vegetables, edible flowers, cut flowers, and culinary herbs for chefs and families. And we're certified naturally grown and take great pride in providing organically grown produce for our friends and family. So before farming, I graduated from the University of Georgia with a degree in forest resources, and then I enlisted in the Army, where I served as a combat medic for 5 years. And while I was in Afghanistan, that's where the whole idea of becoming a farmer kind of came into fruition. Was we decided, me and a group of other medics were talking about what we wanted to do after we got back home, and we just said, we've got to do something peaceful, and farming sounds like a really peaceful option. So the idea of becoming a farmer came to me much later in life. So I was in my, I guess, mid or late 20s. So that topic came about. Me and my friend Jordan Kyle Smith, we were both reading one of Yvon Chouinard's books, the guy who started Patagonia, actually. And it's just about ecology and sustainable living. And so we were discussing that book, and we were talking about wanting to do something that was sort of earth-friendly and peaceful when we got out. And he said, man, we should become farmers. And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And he actually went on to become a forest ranger. So he's not farming, but he's also working in the outdoors. And I became a farmer. So.
Well, I fell in love with farming because I fell in love with cooking. And I really didn't know a whole lot about it when I first worked on my first farm. And the most special thing about that experience was getting to harvest the food, bring it into the kitchen, and cook as a community. And I learned how to cook because I loved that process so much, and fell into farming even deeper because all I wanted to do was get to eat good food with my community and eventually my family. And I always knew that was a goal, to have a family on a farm, and to get to teach that to my children, and do that with my spouse. So it's always been about cooking for me. I think the added bonuses of getting to grow and build an incredible community, getting to do it with my partner, and getting to spend lots of time together outside is why I keep doing it.
So another reason why I got interested in becoming a farmer was my mom really focused on buying organic food growing up, and having a healthy diet was always a big part of our lifestyle growing up. And so I had a desire to, not a culinary background per se, but I've always liked good, healthy food. And I think that having a good diet is really important for not just your physical health, but also your emotional and mental health. So the motivation to be a farmer was to be in a solitude, be peaceful, but also to have just a really great diet. And this is the best way to do it. Just grow it yourself. So when I got out of the Army, I had done a bunch of research on local organic vegetable farms in Middle Alaska. And I had found out about Rosie Creek Farm, which is in Esther, Alaska. And I went to a SARE conference at the University of Alaska. And Mike Emmers, the owner of the farm, was there. And so I introduced myself to him and told him that I thought he should give me a job. And he said, who are you? What's your farming background? I said, well, I don't have a farming background, but I'm recently returned from Afghanistan, and I work hard, and I want to learn about agriculture. And so he gave me a chance. And so I got out of the Army. I went on terminal leave on like a Friday, and basically I was at the farm working Monday morning. And so it was almost the next day, literally, that I went from being a soldier to being a farmer. And so I worked with Mike for a growing season, which is really short in Alaska. It's like, we had, I think it was 45 days in a row was the longest period we had that was frost free. So we had a frost in, I think it was June, and then again in August. So that was a tough season for Mike. But Mike probably paid me more than I deserved and taught me and answered a lot of questions. And then when I decided to move to Tennessee to be closer to my family, I worked at Bloomsbury Farm, and then I worked at Bell's Bend Farm. And then I actually took a season off and worked as a tree climber for an arborist company to try to save money in order to be able to buy our own. So I worked on 3 separate farms over a series of 2 years before we started Sweeter Days Farm. So I met my wife, Christa, at a square dance at Bell's Bend Farm, and we dated for a while, and we were always talking about, well, when I have a farm, and she was talking about when she had a farm. And one day we just kind of got real serious, and it was like, all right, here's the question: do you want to farm with me? And it was like, yes. And so that was, and I said, well, let's name it Sweeter Days Farm, because when I was in Ranger School, my mom sent me this letter that said, you know, Todd, sweeter days are coming. And so for years and years, I knew that Sweeter Days was what I wanted to name this farm. And so we decided on a name and started looking through mortgage paperwork and shopping for land, and we found this farm in the fall of 2016 and were able to buy it. And our friend was able to purchase some additional flat land across the street and lease it back to us. And so our first season was 2017. So currently we have 4 of us that work here, some days more than others. Justin and his wife Sarah Ann decided to be business partners with us, which makes starting a farm a lot more feasible in terms of doing chores and being able to leave the farm, because there's so much work to be done. So they were a huge part of us being able to get this going too. We supply 3 primary restaurants, and then we have a 50-ish member CSA program and do 2 farmers markets. So the way that we chose to go about building this business was we personally just decided to try to do it debt-free. And so it has taken us a few years to purchase all the infrastructure and the tools. It's just one way of doing it. So because of that, we haven't probably been as profitable in those initial years as we could have been if we would have had all the tools and infrastructure. So we all have off-farm jobs, either full-time or part-time. So for me, I work off-farm during the winter and sometimes during the season if things get too tight. So it's the end goal is for all of us to be able to work here full-time, but you know, one step at a time. So some of the major challenges were definitely getting access to land was the biggest question up front. And so what we chose to get a mortgage and just to buy, and some of it is leased as well. So that was a major hurdle. And then getting the infrastructure. So a lot of the grant programs want you to have had at least a season or a tax return from showing farm revenue on that actual plot of land. So getting through the first season can be tough because you're not qualified for some of the cost share programs and grants. So once you get into your second and third year, it actually gets easier to get access to government assistance. So we have found that, I mean, year one was definitely the hardest. I mean, coming in without the proper tool set and without the grants and the funding. So it's been getting easier every year. And then once you get your fertility up and your beds and everything, it seems to be a little bit easier every year as we get into it. So that was those are some of the maybe initial challenges. I would say access to land, infrastructure and equipment, and then also just building like a sales network. You know, when we first started, it was hard to move product. You know, you have a bed of arugula come ready and it's like, okay, now I've got to sell all this arugula and I don't really know anybody who wants to buy it. So that takes some time too, unless you can, you know, some people maybe have pre-arranged relationships. We didn't really. So yeah, building a sales network, that has taken some time too. And in terms of successes, I mean, Christa was born and raised here, and so we had a lot of like family and friend support kind of right from the get-go. So we definitely, our first CSA, which we started in our second season, was really encouraging because we had a lot of friends that signed up, and that felt really good and definitely helped our sales year 2 with the CSA program. So one of the first pieces of equipment we bought was a Farmer's Friend Caterpillar tunnel. And so we weren't even sure if we were going to have access to this land until January of 2017. So when we finally got the thumbs up, that was one of the first things we did, was buy a tarp and a Caterpillar tunnel. And so we actually used the Caterpillar tunnel as like a hardening off area. So we had a small little tiny handmade greenhouse with heat mats, and then as things germinated we would pull them into the Caterpillar tunnel, and it worked great. I mean, we cranked a lot of crops that first season with very little infrastructure, but the Farmer's Friend tunnel was definitely a key piece to that. Being able to put up a 1,400 square foot tunnel by yourself essentially really quickly and efficiently was definitely a big efficiency and profitability jump in the right direction year 1 for sure. We knew we needed a tunnel, and so we were trying to decide what type, what brand, and one of the things we considered was typically you can build things cheaper yourself, and so we started pricing out top rail and hoop bender options and rope and purlin and all the different things, and we priced it out and found out that it was actually more cost efficient per square foot to just buy a kit through Farmer's Friend, and then it kind of became a no-brainer for us to just get a Caterpillar tunnel. Setting them up has been very easy, and especially now I think we've moved our initial Caterpillar tunnel. I think I've moved it 5 times in the last 3 years, and so it's easy. I mean, especially every time you do it, you get a little bit faster. So yeah, they're very easy to install and to move, which is important. I think what's unique about us is that we really strive to build personal relationships with our customers. I really like texting with chefs and sending them pictures, and they know what's coming, and they have we get feedback from them on how they're liking the product or if something needs to be different, and I'm able to plan some of my planting based upon what they want. And we do the same with our farmers market customers. We have a lot of developed friendships over the years, and so I think that our focus on relationships is unique with Sweeter Days Farm. And then also, I think in terms of there's only a handful of farms in this county that are really focused on high-end specialty crops. So that's definitely unique regionally for us. I know there's a lot of great small farms around the nation doing it, but in terms of this county, there's only a handful of us doing it. So regionally, we're unique. Another unique thing about this farm is my background in the military, and so it's been really special for me, having served in the Army, to now be at the Clarksville Farmers Market. We provide a lot of food for military families, and so I was able to serve our country in the military, and now I'm able to serve the military by growing great food for military families. So that's been really special for me, because I really have a heart not only for America but also for veterans and soldiers in particular. So that's special for me. So another thing that we're starting to get into now is, in terms of a specialty crop, is we're starting to grow more and more heirloom dry beans, and we sort of use them almost like a cover crop behind our spring brassicas. So it was an easy transition in terms of bed space in the garden to have a sellable cover crop. And so there are some restaurants that are really interested in these Southern traditional foods, these heirloom dry beans. They're a lot of work, and we haven't quite figured out the profit margins, but it's definitely unique to be growing them. I think it's kind of a dying art almost, growing dry beans. when you have those weeks where you're having to pick cherry tomatoes, slicing tomatoes, hybrid tomatoes,
Okra.
green beans, okra, summer
squash.
and summer squash, and it's like, yeah, I don't know why I'm a summer farmer. So I think the most successful part of our farm operation today would be our relationships with chefs and the CSA program. Those are kind of, I think, the two primary things that are motivating me, and farmers markets as well. But I think we've had the most improvement in building successful relationships with chefs and CSA members. And in terms of the farming system, it took us 3 years to get the complement of tools and equipment. So if you removed any one of our sets of tools right now, I think it would really affect our success rates. So like the tarps, essential on our system, the caterpillar tunnels, the big hoop houses, a heated greenhouse, the BCS, all of that, in order to really consistently produce direct seeded crops primarily. I mean, transplanted crops you can get away with a little bit more, but if we like to do the specialty cut greens, with the greens harvester, so the arugulas, the lettuce mixes, you really have to have the full set of tools and seeders and harvesters and cultivators to make it work. And so by being able to have that full set has led to our success in those areas. Yeah, tarps are probably one of my favorite tools on the whole farm. They're not glamorous, they're not really pretty to look at, but in terms of saving you work, there's no other tool like it in our arsenal of that we have at our disposal. So we use them to prep beds like way in advance. That's kind of their primary thing, is keeping your consistent soil moisture, bringing in the worms, breaking down organic matter. Everybody knows that. But in our region, we use them a lot when there's rain coming. We'll pull out all those tarps to keep beds dry if we're not quite ready to plant them. So we use them to keep beds dry. And we also use them like intermediary, we also use them in between plantings too, just to keep weeds from getting established. So we might not necessarily have a patch of grass that we're trying to kill, but we already prepped some beds and we're trying to keep weeds from moving in there, because we know it is way easier to just pull a tarp over 4 or 5 beds than to hoe them 2 or 3 times. So we use them constantly and for a lot of different things. So I think we have 7 tarps now. I mean, I can cover like a third of the farm if I need to. So they're definitely, I call them my organic herbicide, because we obviously don't use any herbicides, but it does some work for us for sure. So my experience with the quick cut greens harvester was delayed. I worked on a bunch of different farms and we never had one, and so I was a little bit skeptical of how good it would actually work. And we bought one at the end of this season, and I really wish that I had bought it earlier. I really wish that I had bought it earlier, because it works way better than I actually anticipated it would. With the actual oscillating blade, to me, I didn't quite understand how good it was at cutting. I mean, I understood the rope spinning to pull the greens into the blade and into the hopper or the basket, but the oscillating blade just cuts so much more efficiently than I had realized. I thought I was going to have to like push it through the bed, that the actual pushing motion would do the cutting, and it's not. That the blade going back and forth does all the work for you. So I was just blown away that I literally just had to move down the bed and it did all the work. So I bought it in sometime this fall, and I had a bed of arugula ready to cut. And so for 3 years we've been cutting all of our greens by hand. So I think it was a nice bed. I think it was half a bed, so I think it was like 150 square feet, and I cut, I think it was 40 pounds in like 10 minutes, and it would have taken me probably a couple of few hours to do that by hand with our previous setup. So I used it one time and I was totally sold. So I wouldn't want to go back to growing cut greens again without having it. I wish I would have bought it 3 years ago. I don't know why I was so stubborn. And we also got the quick stand to go with it, and for cutting microgreens, and that's been really nice too. So I think that that's an awesome tool, especially for the things that you can get a long stem length really easily. So like the radishes and stuff, I can just zip them right through there. I mean, obviously we all have the goal of having weed-free cut green beds, but occasionally you get something wrong and you get some weeds in there. You're going to have to deal with those weeds if you cut them by hand or with the quick cut. So the difference is, when I would grab a bundle and cut it with my knife, then I'm taking that bunch, flipping it over, and I'm pulling the weeds out. With the quick cut, I just deal with them in the wash pack house. You have to deal with them either way. So I just deal with them now inside versus out in the field. So it's just, I don't think that in terms of the weeds themselves, you still have to deal with them. They still are a pain. They're still time consuming, but you still have to deal with them when you cut them with a knife too. So I would say that it doesn't change my affection for the quick cut greens harvester if I have weeds or don't have weeds in the bed.
We just had our first son 3 months ago. His name is Eli, and it was hard. It was hard being pregnant and trying to farm. It was hard. The birth was hard. But we're so grateful that he's here now, and it's been really special having a son out here and getting to see him sort of discover things for the first time. I'm so grateful that he gets to learn and discover outside with us and to be with us so often. I think that's really special and something that has been a sacrifice for us to try and keep him here as much as possible, but it's something that we're so excited to be able to do for him. And I just hope he really appreciates it when he's older, how much time we got to spend together as a family.
So he's just now 3 months old. So we're trying to figure out how we work and parent and farm. So currently we're experimenting with different carriers and strollers, and so it's been most of those 3 months have been winter, so it's been a challenge just climatically. But so he's spent a lot of time with us in the greenhouse, seeding trays, and when he's feeling happy and good, sometimes we can get him out weeding some beds with us and transplanting, but most of his time is spent in the greenhouse with us right now.
So we bought the farm 4 years ago, and during that time I have worked off farm the whole time. I have a full-time job at a local nonprofit that I love, but having our son and knowing that I really want to farm more, I've been transitioning to part-time on the farm, part-time off the farm, and that's been so nice to get to spend more time outside and to be here and be more active. In the past, I have done a lot of farmers markets, a lot of harvesting. I've enjoyed growing some cut flowers for us, and getting to be here more and think more about what's happening and be up to date with what's happening on the farm has been really fun this last few months.
So having our first child, Eli, has made this business much more personal and poignant for us, knowing that he had 9 months of the highest quality, healthy, nutrient-dense food all along the pregnancy, and now he's got access to superfood, essentially. Mm-hmm. That makes this even more rewarding for me to be growing food, not just for friends, but for our son. It's super special knowing that he's going to get that level of care. Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing him thrive and grow here in this environment and space. And maybe he'll love farming, maybe he won't, that's okay. But we're definitely going to give him plenty of opportunities to be outside and enjoying the magic of watching food grow from a seed. It's still special for us, and we've seen it over and over and over, and I hope he'll fall in love with that too. So during these new uncertain times and conditions we're all being presented as a nation and world right now, we are more excited than ever to be producing food for our CSA program and our community. It's been an adjustment overnight. Essentially, all of our restaurant accounts, almost every single one of them has closed or scaled significantly back. And so our restaurant friends are suffering, and we're trying to pivot, and we're in the process of pivoting our sales model. And what we have decided as of last night is we're doing essentially a week-to-week box, similar to a CSA program that people can buy into. But because we're still not in full spring production, our quantities are sort of limited. So we're selling week to week based on the maximum amount of food we can get out of the fields right now, because we're trying to get as much food into our community as we can right now. We think it's really important that people have access to this nutrient-dense, quality food, because we know that health is super linked to resiliency during these outbreaks. So we're doing a delivery model. The food is going to be handled by a maximum of 5 people, and we've always stressed hygiene and sanitation on the farm. So we're confident that we're able to provide a really crucial service to our community right now. And I've never been more excited to be a farmer and to be not just keeping our doors open, but we're already thinking about how are we going to grow more food this year and potentially hire in more people that need employment in a viable business model, which food we've seen the demand just almost overnight skyrocket, which is
maybe we'll come out better the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's really affirming that we've known all along and believed all along that local agriculture was important and necessary. And this is such an important reminder that global economies are great, but they're also fragile, and the local economy is very important to support. And we're just happy to be here growing food for our friends and family.
A global economy is necessary in this time, but now more than ever, we're sort of seeing with this huge health crisis a need for local farmers more than ever. People who can grow food and get it straight to your door with no more than 5 people touching it before it gets there is pretty incredible. And, I think getting to see the community that's grown around this farm has been so fun to watch, so rewarding. We have so many incredible people who keep investing in us over and over again, and I am beyond grateful that they're enabling us to do what we love to do. And I think that is so unique and so incredible around agriculture, that we're able to be supported by our community, and they're able to get such a high quality product straight to their door. With everything that's happening right now, it's happened so fast, and there's been such an incredible change to our way of life so rapidly, and it's so uncertain and unknown what's going to happen next. And I think my heart is hurting for everybody that's experiencing economic loss, the loss of their health and people in their community. And, it's so unknown what's happening next, but I would say just because farms can be such an incredible space for community, I hope that we can rally around farms all over the United States to come out of this healthier and maybe better than we were before. I think we have a really incredible and unique opportunity to do something really beautiful with this tragedy.
So I think in terms of advice for people starting out into small scale agriculture, I try to tell people that you can learn so much from the literature and the resources online like Instagram and YouTube, but really getting your hands in the soil and spending time working on a farm, you will learn a lot. And so I encourage people to try not to rush into it and to take the time. If you want a sustainable farm, you really need to learn from people that have been doing this, because it's really easy to conceptualize a very nice, flat, perfect, nice tilth bed, and you use a seeder and just have this incredible harvest, but there's actual mechanics to that and techniques, and driving a BCS takes practice, and using a seeder takes practice. So spend time and work for multiple different farms. I worked for 3 different farms, maybe 4. I wish I had worked for 5 different farms, because every farm has their own specialties and different sets of equipment. So spend some time working for other farmers and learning from them, and getting, if you can, some management practice, because it's one thing to plant a bed of something and harvest it and sell it, but it's another one to be the guy who buys those seeds and decides when it's planted and when it's harvested. So if you can get a management level role at a farm, I think that's huge in terms of a good experience before trying to start your own. Other things too is, I know a lot of people shy away from social media, but for us, social media has been a huge learning resource. The farming community, I feel like, is really strong and positive on social media, and so I'm constantly asking questions of other farmers on social media and getting feedback directly from them. I mean, a really famous farmer might have, tens of thousands of followers. I mean, it's not like a Hollywood celebrity. They can respond and they can get back to you, and that's really neat, because I think we all have to help each other. We're all just wanting to work in the country or work in the city and work with food and have a more sustainable future. So they want to help you. I think small-scale farming is always going to be important. It was important in the past, it is now, and it will be in the future. I think that there's a place for large-scale mechanized ag, but in terms of the quality of the product and the way in which it's grown, I mean, we really have something special going on here. And like, if I can create an environment that instills joy and peace in our lives, like, that's a win for me. One of the things that I love about, for me, in small-scale agriculture is it creates an environment for me to raise a family and have a peaceful life, and to grow in joy and happiness right here in this isolated little spot with our dog. And so I think my perspective on small-scale agriculture has actually gotten smaller over time, in that I want to raise a family in the country and to love it and to be peaceful and quiet and to grow in health and wellness and happiness. And it's a great way for me to do it. This is a good environment for me, especially coming back from Afghanistan, to be quiet and peaceful. And I think that farming is a tool that a lot of other veterans are using too, to find healing coming back from war, and it's definitely been that for me. So small-scale agriculture is maybe different for me than for some people. It's definitely pretty personal. And we get to eat great food and share it with our friends in the community in the process. I think what motivates me personally is I just love working in this field. I like the quiet, and I like being independent. And so this actual, the business of being a small scale farmer motivates me. It's satisfying to grow good food, and it motivates me to be in charge of it and to be a small scale business. And so yeah, I think that the business aspect of running a farm didn't appeal to me at first, but over time, it's meaningful to be a business owner and to provide work for, not just food, but also work and employment for other people, and that definitely motivates me. I think that what is the most deeply satisfying part of running Sweeter Days Farm for me is nurturing health, honestly, through just really good food. I mean, there's nothing like, you know, a full belly and what that can do for your mentality and your emotional health, your mental health. So when we have CSA members that we fed moms while they were pregnant, and now we get to see their kids, and that is so special. So that, to me, to grow food that is, you know, some people might even call it medicine, you know, make food your medicine, and that is satisfying to me, that we are making people healthier and in the end better people, more functional, happier, healthier. So it's satisfying to me to be enriching people's lives through good food. That's satisfying.